You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
Today, the Batman.
Bro, I'm so excited.
The moment we've all been waiting for. This is our first big movie review of 2022. So we're hyped.
Well, it is.
It
Yeah,
is.
Spider-Man was last year.
Spider-Man was the last one. So
it
this is our first big movie review. Next up on the slate, I believe, is Morbius. So we're excited for that. But super hyped about, the Batman and to finally talk about, this is our first Batman-centric podcast that we've had besides the trailer breakdown. So it's pretty
really
dope to think about. Like our first Batman movie.
That's crazy to think about.
We weren't around when we, Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises were coming around.
That just shows you like how deprived us DC fans are.
Right.
Like
very deprived. And I already hear a lot of people saying, start a new DC EU with the Batman and all that. I'm like, I'd be down for that.
Listen, I'll be down.
I think that would be a great idea. But just first initial reactions to the movie. Of course, spoiler warning, there is heavy spoilers in this podcast. So if you've not yet watched this monster of a movie, 3 hours, go watch it. Come back.
Get out of here. What you doing?
Get out of here.
But still download.
But
get out of here.
Download
get out of
and
here.
then come back. That way we'd appreciate that. Anyway, so some initial reactions. What was your initial reaction? Not necessarily after the movie, Nathan.
Yeah.
Let's start with during the movie. What was going through your mind?
Ooh, good question. So me and Michael watched it. What was it? Thursday night?
Saturday. I saw it twice.
We saw it once and then we watched it together. Bro, I can't lie. That was probably my favorite in-theater experience since Endgame.
Really?
Spider-Man No Way Home had me hyped, but bro, this movie, and we've talked about it before, but it did feel like an experience rather than like an entertainment, right?
It did.
So dude, I felt like I was in the movie, bro.
I literally felt like the best comparison I could say is I felt like I was literally playing the Arkham video games.
Yeah.
It felt such like that. And as you all know, the Batman Arkham games are some of the best Batman storylines ever. Amazing. Like Arkham City, one of the best storylines in all of Batman history, including comic books. So it's pretty dope to really realize that in a movie and see that come to life as we've always wanted. So that was pretty dope. And I agree with you when it comes to when I was watching this movie the first time, dude, I was so hyped. They weren't necessarily as reactive because, of course, everybody saw it and knew what was coming. It didn't have any, huge cameos, which it didn't need any, which was great. But it was just pretty dope watching it in the theater and realizing this is Batman, and we are seeing this again.
I know.
I remember
this is the first time since 2017.
Right, 2017. We saw, of course, Batfleck. But this was the first Batman movie theater experience I've had in a long time because a Batman solo movie. The last time I saw a Batman solo movie, I didn't see Dark Knight Rises in the theater, but I did see Dark Knight. I was 6 years old in the theater watching that movie. I watched Dark Knight, and I remember bits and pieces. I don't remember a whole lot, of course, because I was 6. But coming back now,
be better, Michael. Be better.
I know I should have been better. But coming back now to watch this amazing solo Batman movie come to life in 2022 was just incredible. Yeah, to say the least about it.
I didn't go to theaters to watch, when Nolan's movies came out.
Right.
So this was my first solo Batman experience.
That's
pretty dope. And as I was watching this masterpiece, bro, I felt like such a weight on my shoulders and anxiety. Like I was kind of sympathizing with the Batman. Like I was feeling like what he was feeling.
Definitely.
Like you said, it really felt like you were there. I can't tell you I haven't felt that way about other Batman movies or about other movies in general.
Right. This movie did a great job executing it. And it is a long, lengthy movie, but to be honest, it didn't feel that long for me. At least my first showing. The second showing, it felt pretty long.
Bro, it felt really long for me. I'd use the bathroom, dude.
I was thankful. The first time I didn't have to go at all, so that was nice. But the first time, it went super, super quick and did not feel like 3 hours. The second time, it felt a little bit longer than I remembered. But it was super just awesome being there and seeing it, with, two separate people was amazing as well to get different perspectives while watching it. Definitely increased my hype for this movie. All right, so we got an incredible lineup for you guys today. We're just going to break this movie down. Of course, we can't go shot by shot for this movie because it's, flipping 3 hours.
It's like 6 hours.
It would take us 6 hours to do that. So we're not doing that, but we are going to talk about a lot. So we're going to start off with the initial, probably arguably the best part of the movie, the characters. We got to start about each of the characters and talk about each of them. So obviously, we got to start off with the Batman himself. So how did we think about the Batman in this movie and Robert Pattinson's portrayal?
First time with Robert Pattison.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of doubts, right, going in when we heard about the
I was
casting.
a doubter when he's first got. I was.
I've liked Pattison, but Batman seemed kind of odd. But I can't lie, he was by far the best part about this film.
For sure.
Robert Pattison freaking killed it.
He did.
I know he did what Matt Reeves wanted. I know there's, some takes he did that a lot of, big fans weren't too happy with. But at the end of the day, Pattison did what he was told to.
He was.
And he killed it.
He absolutely destroyed it. I mean, to me, thinking about his portrayal of the Batman, I feel like that was the most comic accurate Batman that we've ever gotten before in live action. I mean, it was so raw. It was so great. I loved his Batman voice. It wasn't like the Rachel. Yeah. It wasn't like that.
Bale's voice was terrible.
I hated Bale's voice, but his Batman was great, but I hated his voice. But Pattinson's voice was phenomenal as Batman. He did great. Like just him, saying "I am vengeance" whenever he was talking to the criminals, just really it compelled me. I felt it. And I
feel like you were vengeance.
I felt like I was vengeance. Like literally after watching this movie, I wanted to run a mile and become Batman. Like legit, that's how I felt. I wanted to
if that's all it took, I'd run it right now.
That's literally what I wanted to. That motivation left me the morning after. But anyway, still really wanted to do that. But I really loved Robert Pattinson's portrayal as Batman. I thought his detective work and his acting skills for like Batman and being that detective and. He was literally Batman for like 98% of the movie, and literally in the whole movie,
he was Batman 100% of the movie.
And that's like, of course, like the Arkham movies, like that's how, or the Arkham games, that's how he is he's Batman the whole time. So it's pretty dope to see. But now we got to talk about what I didn't like, and that's the Bruce Wayne portrayal.
Yeah. Like we mentioned earlier, even when he takes off the mask, right, he's still Batman.
He's still Batman.
When he's interacting with Batman, he looks soulless on the outside.
He does. He has no emotion.
And I understand Matt Reeves' decision, right? He's kind of unsure what he's doing. He's just year two. He's trying to find his purpose. Right. He's not yet that billionaire playboy. He's just trying to find out what he's doing and like if he's even having an impact. So obviously, he's really downcast. I hope that, throughout the trilogy, Matt Reeves kind of like bring that, playful side to life. But I mean, for the scale of the movie and what it was, for the new takes on the other characters, I think it worked. But yes, I know I would have liked to see that. But
and
when
it
you
fit
think
with
about
the vibe
it,
of the movie.
how would, a rich billionaire, would have fit?
Right.
Playboy in this movie.
I see what you're saying for sure. But if you do remember years and years ago, the first trailer for the Batman came out in 2020. Right? I told you when I said that, I'm like, I'm not going to like his Bruce Wayne. You remember that?
Yeah.
I said that. I'm not a fan of his Bruce Wayne. I can tell. Like the trailers, and even after I was like, I'm not going to like his Bruce Wayne. And still here, I did not like his Bruce Wayne. But after seeing this movie, I believe Robert Pattinson can do it. That was my disbelief. I didn't know if he could pull it off as an actor, but now I believe he can do it. I just believe Matt Reeves' interpretation was a little bit off. I understand. He was different. I understand what he wanted to go for. I understand he wanted this emo rock star recluse type.
Yeah, because I know he was basing him off of Kurt Cobain, right, from the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, that's literally who he is.
He literally was like that. And I understand that portrayal of him, he has two personalities and he's having trouble balancing it. And to him, he's more so Batman than he is Bruce Wayne. And I definitely think in a sequel, he will be more of that Bruce Wayne and realize he needs Bruce Wayne too. Because in the comics and in the other movies, Bruce Wayne helps Batman along by being the playboy billionaire.
Yeah.
He literally does that, but putting on that facade, but putting on that, vibe that, he gives off where he, goes and buys hotels because he wants to.
Yeah.
It just shows that it really makes other people think he's not Batman. There's no way he's Batman.
And it gives him that crucial, sorry to interrupt, but it gives him that crucial break too from the, rigorous work of being Batman to just sit back and
also it gives him like opportunities to go to parties and clubs and see different things from different eyes. If he goes as Batman, you have people going after him all the time. If he goes as Bruce Wayne, people are rubbing shoulders with him and talking to him.
I know. And he's rubbing shoulders with all the politicians, the mayors, the richest businessmen.
Yeah. And it is important to know, and I know this is what Matt Reeves is going for, is that, a lot of people say that, Batman is Bruce Wayne's alter ego. Well, that's not true. Bruce Wayne is Batman's alter ego.
Ooh.
That's just what we need to know, is what we realize is that's the truth, is Batman is Batman. Bruce Wayne's just what he needs.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what Matt Reeves is more so going for, and hopefully in future sequels we'll get a better incarnation of that. I hope.
I really think we'll do. I think we will.
I trust him at this point. He did a really great job, so hopefully you'll see that. But otherwise, for the Batman aspect of this movie, no trouble. I have no issues when it comes to him. Of course, also I have an issue with how Bruce Wayne just literally just talked in a whisper the whole time. He should have talked. And he had no emotion. That was a big con.
I know, and that's kind of all revolving around the same thing. And I understand, his character and what Reeves was trying to do. But like I said, he was Batman 100% in the film, even without the suit.
He was.
But dude, bro, the best part was just how comic accurate it was, and the whole detective work.
The whole detective work that he did, and that he definitely betrayed that he is a detective. He knows what he's doing.
He's the world's greatest. He is. And when's the last time in the Batman movie like we truly saw like his abilities explored?
Like I really like. Right? I rewatched. I rewatched Dark Knight. In preparation for this podcast, and I also watched Batman.
Batman Begins.
Not Batman Begins. I watched Batman: The Long Halloween. I watched those.
Did you watch 1 and 2?
I watched 1 and 2, and I was like, I wanted to see a different perspective, and Long Halloween definitely influenced this movie. I can definitely tell you that,
dude, it's good,
sure.
Isn't it?
For sure, it is very good. However, I did not like how it was like, I'm not a detective. Like Bruce literally goes, I'm not a detective, Alfred, and I'm like, that's not true. You're literally the world's
genius.
And I didn't like that necessarily. And then the Dark Knight, it does not touch on his detective base at all. And that's a big con for that. But this movie, full on. And I love that aspect. I think that's so cool. And how he got to, investigate stuff, resolving the issues going on with the Riddler and resolving the issues in GCPD and all this kind of stuff was super dope to me. And I love that part. But I believe that's pretty much it to talk about the Batman as of now for his character. All right, so next up we have Riddler, played by Paul Dano.
Dude, I can't lie, Paul Dano,
he killed it,
man.
He absolutely
I haven't seen him in a lot of other projects.
I neither myself.
So this was like a new experience for me. Man, he was scary, dude.
He was scary, especially
honestly,
the first half. I mean, 50% of the movie he was masked up, scary, riddled me this, riddle that. The other 50%,
yeah, I know that's the con. I didn't really like him in the third act. He was kind of laughable and ridiculous. I felt, but dude, I can't tell you the last time in a superhero movie I felt like goosebumps, man. Yeah. During that first scene, right? The movie opens with his goggles and him just right,
perfect,
bro. And when he appears behind,
scary,
dude. I almost
I was scared.
I really did. But I know the whole basis for his character was kind of taken from the Zodiac Killer.
Yep.
Right, which I mean the Zodiac movie is crazy good.
Right.
But dude, I love this new take on Riddler. I know it wasn't super comic accurate, but in this dark, gritty world, there would be really not much of a place for the comic accurate Riddler.
No,
so this version fit perfectly. The serial killer, riddling, trying to get Batman to work with him worked great.
Right. I agree. I think it was perfect. I really do. I mean, of course, there's, like you said, the cons of the third act. I can tell that. And I'll get into that in a second. But I mean, I've said this time and time again on this podcast and outside this podcast, any great movie needs to start from the perspective of the villain. And this movie does that, and it captivates us from the beginning. I mean, when you see Riddler killing the mayor, you instantly are like, I'm involved. I'm invested.
You're like, whoa.
Why? I mean, what is his cause? What is his reasoning? I was instantly did that. And Dark Knight did the same thing. They started with the Joker. And that was the best thing a lot of movies can do.
That scene, the opening scene is so good.
So good. And I mean, that's the same thing with A New Hope starts with Darth Vader. You get that premise. I mean, a lot of these great movies start off with the villain, and you have to in these things. Avengers Infinity War, Thanos starts off with him. I mean, all these great movies have to start with the villain because, and even just outside movies, not huge like Marvel, Star Wars, DC, need to start with the villain because that way you can understand their perspective and really get a grasp of what the movie's going to be about and how they need to solve this. And I think that does such a great job in doing that. And just the Riddler portrayal and stuff, like you said, the Zodiac Killer portrayal, and also a little bit of elements of the comic Riddler were great. His riddles were fantastic. He was ruthless a lot of times. He did a lot of killing in a lot of different ways. And like you said, it wasn't necessarily this comic accurate Riddler we really know, but I think it was more so comic accurate than I initially thought it was going to be. Like the third act Riddler was the Riddler from the comics, straight up.
Yeah,
like he was more so Riddler there than he was in the beginning. Really was. Like that's something Riddler would do. And I mean, Riddler is someone who's supposed to be. I mean, he's insane, but he loves to play games with the Batman, especially, and he loves to work with the Batman in this sense. And that was captured essentially perfectly.
Their chemistry
was great.
Was amazing.
It was great. And I would have loved to see more scenes of them interacting, to be honest. I would have enjoyed that more so. But I love the portrayal of him in the mask and him in the, of course, in the beginning of the movie when he's killing people and, setting up these riddles and these elaborate plans all the way through the movie that lead up to this big thing, the flood. right? I think that was perfectly illustrated. I really do. I mean, with the whole detective aspect and if they really want to sell a detective movie, the Riddler is the way to go because, of course, what's his main motive is riddles.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always doing riddles constantly.
And you gotta solve them.
You gotta solve them in order to figure out what's up and what's going on.
Yeah, that was my favorite aspect of the movie.
I love that. And to start off a trilogy with the Riddler, I think is perfect for the Batman.
Yeah,
like
when's
perfect.
the last time you've seen something like that?
You haven't.
Like that was a great basis, a great starting point. To be honest, like from the first, like you said, from the first get-go, we see the villain and we see like kind of his psyche. But I was very surprised for being a PG-13 movie, how much of like Riddler's like ways were shown.
Dude, yeah. Like a thumb?
Like, yeah, it really felt like an R-rated movie.
It did.
In some aspects, which, I'm glad they gave it PG-13 so, younger audience can see it. But, dude, I was really glad that they just, gave control to Matt Reeves and let him just go, run wild with his character, which he did. But, dude, that character was just menacing, intimidating. He was a genuine threat.
Right.
I mean, it even took Batman a little bit to figure out,
Yeah, and I think he was one of the best villain performances we have seen. I don't think it's comparable to that of, like, obviously not, of course, of Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
Other performances like Darth Vader. It's not comparable to that sense. But I think it's one of the best Batman villain portrayals we've gotten.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to all the Batman movies, I would put Riddler number 2 as villains wise, behind Joker, of course.
Yeah.
Because I think he's better than the rest. I mean, that we've gotten because we haven't gotten that great of ones. I mean, like when you think of Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul was great and stuff, but I think Riddler was better illustrated in this movie. And then with Dark Knight Rises, I'm not a huge fan of how they did Bane, so I really think Riddler is.
I agree. I agree.
I really enjoyed that. And I mean, just Paul Dano, like you said, the third act. I understand where you're coming from, but to me, I loved it because it was more Riddler from the comics.
Yeah.
And that's how he was. That's why I really liked it. And that's what I was wanting from this movie. I wanted to see a little bit of that too. And I loved seeing that. And that literally, like in that jail cell in Arkham, when they were having that conversation, that was Riddler. And I loved seeing that. And I thought that, personally, I loved that scene. I think that scene was great. And him like just screaming, no! It was hilarious to me. And I loved that.
I felt like the 180 was just too great. At the same time, it seemed that like his whole personality and demeanor changed when he no longer had his mask, when he no longer had everything. He went from being this intimidating figure to being almost laughable. I mean, obviously it doesn't help that Paul Dano has a baby face, but I found it really hard to take him seriously when he was in jail. And I know that was part of his plan, and I wasn't a huge fan of the whole turning himself in. I know,
turning himself in has been done so many times.
David Fincher's, what is it? Seven. It does that.
Dark Knight does that.
Yeah. And I understand what it was, but man, at the same time, I wish that wouldn't have happened. Because like I said,
I agree.
His jail cell was cool and it was comic accurate, but it felt like such a big change.
It was a huge change.
What we had seen.
If you go from this,
it's kind of confusing.
This one dude who's like, what is whack and all that stuff, like the super cold riddles, and then to popping up a video of the riddle. What's up, guys? Thanks for 500 followers. Like, I mean,
see, and
completely different.
Did the movie explain why there was such a
I
huge
feel like
difference in those?
The difference is that when Riddler was like in his element with the mask and in his element in the sense of like, doing these riddles and playing with the Batman and taking down this corruption in the city of Gotham, I think, behind the mask, he was like, he felt more able to do stuff. And I feel like this can go in society today. I mean, in some certain cases, when you have a mask on, or not necessarily a physical mask, but like let's say a mask of something that you're comfortable doing, and you feel like, not many people can see you, or you feel like in your element, you do better.
Yeah,
and then when you have that mask taken away, right, you feel more secure.
Because you can protect yourself from opinions from the outsiders.
Exactly. And I think, when you have that mask stripped away for another element, you're different. You're more so you. And that's what I think they were trying to get across. Okay. In my opinion. I mean, I could be completely wrong. But that's how I got from that.
That's a pretty good take. I'll still never get over his scream. Like he would do like before he killed somebody, bro. That sent me like chills.
Yeah, dude.
Like really, man.
And the duct tape, his duct tape motive.
The duct tape. I know that Paul Dano like actually wrapped himself like under the costume. Yeah. I can't imagine how hard that had to be, but homie went all in for this role. And I truly feel like it paid off.
I do.
I mean, yeah, I don't love his portrayal in the third act, but that's Matt Reeves' decision. That's what he wanted. And it gave, way to a really cool scene with him and another character.
Right.
But man, I love Paul Dano. Great.
He did a good job. And I mean, of course they didn't kill him off like a lot of movies do. They just kill off the villain, don't bring him back. This movie didn't do that. So we can see him return.
I know that's maybe like in the third or something, like there's a big jailbreak and then like that would be dope.
I would love to see like Batman versus his entire rogues gallery. That would be kind of cool.
Batman
Hard
with his Bat family that they hopefully introduce in number
But I feel
2.
like that would be more so in a different trilogy, separate trilogy, as to this trilogy.
Gotcha.
And I hope Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves do get another trilogy. I really hope so. I feel like it's deserving. I really do.
I hope so.
All right. So next up, we got to switch up a little bit and talk about our kind of secondary protagonist, our next big character, Catwoman. What'd you think of Catwoman?
I'm still undecided, to be honest, what I feel about her. I feel like she was great in some ways, but then she wasn't in some ways. I think
Zoe Kravitz did a good job. I think she killed it.
She did. What did she do well, Michael?
I think she did a really good job showing that she's not good, but at the same time she has potential to be good.
Yeah.
I can see that shine through her. The only thing I didn't really like when it comes to Catwoman is that her chemistry with Robert Pattinson's Batman wasn't as good as I would have liked it to have been.
Yeah.
But I do like the aspect of how, like, in the comics, they're full on. They're always like Catwoman and Batman are always off and on. And it always, and when it gets down to it, they have to realize, Catwoman, she's a thief. Batman's a hero, and they could never be together. And I feel like they captured that really well in the end. Whenever she's like, "I'm going to Bloodhaven," of course, a little Easter egg there we'll talk about a little bit.
Yeah,
but she's like, and it really showed how they couldn't be together because of how different they are and how of that element. I thought that was great.
I liked how they show that, but I don't know how.
I feel like she should have been
felt
more
about that
flirtatious.
because she had no morality throughout the entire film.
I think she did.
I know that. I don't think she did.
Well, I mean,
the whole
she
time
showed
she was hell bent on vengeance
because of
the murder of her
she
friend.
really loved. I mean,
know,
someone her friend she loved.
She only wanted to kill who was responsible. I don't think she does a single big moral act the entire film.
She saves Batman.
That's just because they're partners.
But not necessarily. She didn't have to. She was trying to escape the city originally, remember?
True.
But she had to go back in the building. She saw him struggling up there. She went up to save him.
That
was a big morality.
She gets one. She gets one. But I think, obviously, Reeves will continue to flesh out her character.
Right.
But, man, like you said, the chemistry, I wasn't a huge fan of.
I feel like Catwoman should have been more flirtatious because in the comics, she's super flirtatious with Batman all the time. I feel like that would have been better.
I thought she was pretty. I mean, she kissed him twice during the movie.
Right, but I would have liked to see a little bit more so because in the comics,
Michael,
it's pretty
I want it. I want to see some more flirt.
I want to see some more of that. But I really did like her. I feel like her thief aspect was really cool, how they captured her. And her fighting, I feel like her fighting scenes were really good and executed, like how she's supposed to fight. I thought
agree.
That was pretty good.
Her fighting was cool. She obviously she reminded me of a cat, right? She could tell she did her homework.
She did.
Man, I'm still kind of undecided. I think she's probably the best Catwoman we've had.
I don't know. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer was a pretty good Catwoman.
I don't think the competition is too high.
It's not too high
when it comes to that. But
Michelle Pfeiffer was good, but they just changed her entire comic book story. That's why Zoe's better because it's more so.
And one other thing I wasn't a huge fan of her dialogue. I felt at times with Batman was kind of cheesy, and I feel like some of it could be left out. But that's just a minor issue.
See, I like that because it reminded me more of the comics, like how she is cheesy in the comics. She is just I got 9 lives, honey, or she's always rubbing up on Batman, saying stuff like that. I mean, that's just how she is.
I think overall, I liked her better by herself as compared with Batman.
Yeah.
Just because of I feel like the failed chemistry between the two.
I feel like in sequels, we could see a lot more potentially. I feel like a lot more would happen. I feel like, they'll develop her even more so. Because, I mean, establishing her like this means she's got to appear in the next one. She's got to appear in the next one after that.
For sure.
I mean, I think, establishing her like this and showing her and, she just met Batman in this movie. So maybe that chemistry will develop even further.
I will say the way they introduced these two characters was perfect.
It was perfect.
I know. I mean, I can't put myself in the director's spot after the movie. I was like, how would I link up Batman and Catwoman? How would I do that? And dude, Reeves did a great job. He really did. It was a seamless transition between the two. Like a reluctant partnership at first, and then kind of gave way to, I don't know,
a little bit of romance,
friendship, something more than that.
Right.
But the way it happened was really good. So
I mean, I love the scene when she and partnering with Batman, and she's going to the club, and then she's like, "Do you even care about me?" And then he looks at her, and he's like, "Come here." And he's like, "You look fine." He goes back and that was
ain't
so
no simp. I turned to you during the theater. I said, "He ain't no simp."
But later in the movie, you can tell he definitely does. Begin to care about her, especially when he, saves her life in the end, which was great too, which they kind of evened each other out. But I loved that. And I think she did a great job. And I loved Catwoman in this movie. And I can't wait to see her do more.
I'm excited.
I think she'll do
I'm excited to see where her character goes.
For sure. And I think they'll develop her costume, make it a little bit more comic accurate. Maybe she'll get the goggles in the next one.
She get the goggles.
I love I can't wait to see that. Because I love Catwoman as a character. I always have. So I really want to see her.
I'm not a huge fan, but I appreciate her.
Yeah. I mean, she's needed. And I just think it's so cool that Batman's biggest love interest in comics is someone who's an anti-hero. I mean, it really shows his character.
That is pretty cool.
I mean, it shows his character. I mean, Catwoman, when she was introduced, she was a full-on villain. And then they developed her as more of an anti-hero later. So it's great to see her, grow through the years. All right. Next up, we have to talk about Lieutenant Jim Gordon. What do we think about him? Jeffrey Wright. Played by Jeffrey Wright.
I'm going to give you just my unfiltered opinion about this. I still think Jeffrey Wright was not a bad casting.
Yeah.
Right? Jeffrey Wright is a great actor.
He is.
I don't mind if they erase swap whatever. He looked like Jim Gordon.
Right.
Right? But he did nothing the entire film.
Right. He had a good amount of screen time for doing nothing, too.
Listen, I'll tell you, the reason he was in the film was just like to cuss and then to protect Batman from the other cops. But as far as being a detective, he didn't solve one thing by himself.
He didn't solve anything.
I mean, like Jim Gordon, like he's a threat to bad guys, right? He's heading the cops, but the whole time, and we don't even know why or how they met, but he's just vouching for Batman the whole time, and he's watching Batman solve everything. Like Jim Gordon really doesn't do anything in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I can vouch for him in the sense of how they met is just because we've seen Batman's origin story before, so I mean, we don't really need it again. And of course, we know Jim Gordon was a detective that found the Waynes. Of course, and Bruce Wayne, of course, he doesn't know that Bruce Wayne's Batman yet. But I think it's still cool that they showed the relationship, and I think the relationship was good. But I think Jeffrey Wright, I think he would have been better, to be honest, Lucius Fox than he would have been Jim Gordon. I mean, this is just me saying because Gary Oldman's legendary performance as Jim Gordon in the Dark Knight trilogy
was great.
Was fantastic. He was the best live action Jim Gordon we've ever had, ever will have, probably. I mean, J.K. Simmons was pretty good, but we didn't get to see him enough. Which she's rumored to be in the Batgirl movie coming later this year. But
really? I didn't know that.
So, which I'd be fine with because it's DCU and that's the Jim Gordon DCU. But I don't know. I mean, I agree with what you're saying and how like he didn't do much, but I feel like he did definitely clear Batman's head and also kept him a little bit more. Gave him some more morality than he initially had because, originally like Batman didn't seem to have any compassion for the cops aside from Jim Gordon. So it was nice to have him that compassion. And I really, really liked the aspect of how, you have Jim Gordon, who's a diehard cop. He'll do anything to protect the city of Gotham. And then it goes from him being like, to telling Batman, you're the only one I trust. You're the only one I believe in because these guys, half of them are corrupt. So I believe in you. Yeah. I love that. And I think that line was very well executed. And I think Jeffrey Wright is a talented actor. And I think they could further flesh out Jim Gordon's character, possibly with the addition of Barbara Gordon, his daughter. Maybe could flesh out a little bit more. I don't know, but we'll see what happens in the future. But overall, I agree that I feel like, I don't necessarily want to say a miscast, but at the same time, I feel like also it comes down to Matt Reeves as well.
Yeah, I really don't. Like I said, I don't think it was a miscast. Like I said, because he's talented, but I really feel like this is a place where Reeves kind of screwed the pooch. And I do, in my opinion, Michael, I think he's probably my least favorite like character in the movie. No,
really?
Well, I understand that, right? He gave way for Batman to do all of his detective work, but in the process, it rendered Jim Gordon useless in the film.
Right. Which I don't want to. I want to also mention like the Gotham Jim Gordon is also a very good Jim Gordon. So I don't want to forget
Gotham
him.
Jim Gordon
He's
is
great
goated.
He's great too. I would have loved to see him cast in that role, dude. He's old enough now. I think he could.
Yeah,
do it.
he could definitely do it.
Yeah, so I would love to have seen
the stash
going.
going.
I mean, he had the stash in the final season, so I would love to have seen that.
I love the stash.
I know. All right, so that concludes Jim Gordon. Now we got to talk about. I feel like I'm right in saying one of our favorite parts of the movie. Me and you both. Penguin, played by Colin Farrell.
Penguin, dude. Every single thing I'm seeing. Oh, guess who stole the show? You know who stole the show, dude. Right. Colin Farrell as Penguin was probably like him and Paul Dano and Batman were my favorite three. Yeah. I guess Colin Farrell was so good. His character was so intriguing because he wasn't scared of Batman.
No.
He wasn't scared at all, dude. He wasn't the rat.
He was scared at one point. There was one singular moment that he was scared.
What was that?
When he was flipped over and Batman was walking towards him.
I probably would miss.
I would have been freaking out too.
Batman upside down with a ball of fire
that was the one time.
him.
But other than that, no. This Penguin was perfect. He looked like his comic counterpart. I feel like I would have made him a little bit shorter. But I mean, he's fine. Maybe get the pointy nose a little bit. Hopefully, maybe in the next movie we'll get like the hat and the umbrella. Possibly.
Ooh.
That'd be dope. I'd love to see it. And I know Colin Farrell fought for the cigar but didn't get it. So
dude, cigar would have made perfect
sense. It would have been so perfect.
Bro, villains need a cigar.
And it's not like a hero. He's a villain. So like, it could have been cool with that. But dude, and what really baffles me is that's Colin Farrell under all of that.
I can't believe it.
It does not look like it.
I can't understand it
at all.
Bro, remember how outraged people were? I remember me too when they announced the casting. You're like, dude, Colin Farrell's like 6 feet tall. Dude, yeah. He's not short. He's not fat.
He doesn't look anything like Penguin.
He's an attractive dude. How is he supposed to play Penguin?
But he nailed it.
He was perfect. He was funny. He was charismatic. He was defiant.
He got the penguin waddle going.
Yeah.
That was great. And he did have a little bit of a limp too, so that was great. And I loved how he began, like when they first show him, instead of like kind of like his comic counterpart. He didn't begin as the big, crime lord gangster that he became. He was under Carmine Falcone in this movie, and that was a great illustration of how he was. And then now after this movie, he's going to be the big crime boss. So I love to see that, and I can't wait to see that portrayal. And I love how he wasn't like a main villain. He was just kind of like a
side.
What's the word?
Not like side villain?
Not necessarily really a side villain even. It was more of an accomplice is what I want to say. An accomplice is the word in this movie.
And I guess maybe that's maybe just a tiny con I had. I didn't feel like he was evil enough. Maybe that's just because you said he's still under Falcone. Mm-hmm. And he obviously can't run.
So I think he'll definitely branch out a lot more and get fleshed out as a character as we see him in the more, because apparently we're going to see him more than any of these other characters.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So we're excited to see that, and I think they'll definitely flesh him out and hopefully give him the hat, give him the umbrella, give him the suit, and we'll see him become the big crime gangster that he does become. And hopefully we'll see that. But Colin Farrell's Penguin was absolutely great. He stole the show every scene he was in. And he wasn't in the movie a whole lot, but he did. Every scene he was in, he really did kill it. And I enjoyed seeing him on screen. I feel like he definitely was the Penguin, which I really liked.
No, he really was.
He really was.
Shout out.
All right, next up, we got to talk about Alfred, played by Andy Serkis.
Ooh.
What do you think?
This is a touchy subject, I feel like.
It is.
Because I'm an Andy Serkis fan.
I do. I love him as
the dude directs movies, the dude acts. He's super talented.
Right.
But first and foremost, I don't think the casting was right.
Yeah.
I still don't. Even though it's a younger Batman, Andy Serkis is only like, in his 50s. It doesn't feel like 50s, Alfred.
Or is he 60s?
I'm pretty sure he's 50s.
I'm gonna look that up.
Bro, if he's 60s, dude, that dude is like in tip-top shape.
I don't know how
I think it's like mid-50s.
But yeah, I agree. That was a big con I have. I'm not a huge fan. He's 57. I'm not a huge fan of really not a huge fan of his interpretation. I think it could have been a lot better illustrated, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't Alfred. It really wasn't, because every other Alfred we've seen, like my favorite by far live action Alfred is the Gotham Alfred. I love him. Like he's fantastic. But like in this sense, he wasn't great. And even Michael Caine's Alfred felt more like Alfred in the comics and stuff. But he just didn't feel like he wasn't in this movie a whole lot anyway. And he got hurt and injured, which everybody gasped in my theater by first watching. Everybody was like, no, whenever he was about to die.
I know.
But he didn't die, thankfully. But I feel like he could do better, but I still have a hard time, even after watching the movie, picturing him as Alfred.
Yeah, accepting
like he's a butler.
It kind of gives me the vibe that he's still in the army. Just like with whole Andy Serkis's like whole look, his figure, it seems that he would be actively involved in some in some of the physical stuff of Batman,
which he has helped Batman in the physical world in many other ways before.
And
so.
Andy Serkis would be a perfect Alfred candidate to do that.
Yeah.
But he didn't really even have an opportunity to do what Alfred does. Because the whole time Batman is just staring away.
The only thing he did was solve ciphers.
How many scenes was Alfred in? Like 3, 4,
like
5?
4. And they were very small scenes.
It's just very brief.
The biggest thing that he did was solve the first cipher. that was pretty much it, like the drive. And then he also solved the El Rata Altada or whatever.
Yeah,
but
Elada.
Still, like, I'm still not a fan of it. Hopefully, maybe it'll get better, but I just can't see it, to be honest.
I have a hard time.
In the comics, Alfred does put on the Batman suit a couple of times, but only not to fight, only to be looked at, to like scare the people when Bruce is away. That's only the reason he does it. And I'd like to see that maybe portrayal. Possibly we'll see that, but not fight. But I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this Alfred, but Possibly it'll get better, but I can't see it, to be honest.
Do you think like they would age him up with makeup or prosthetics, kind of like they did the?
I don't think so. I feel like the gray hair was enough. I mean, he looked pretty old, so I mean, I feel like that'd be better. But like
to me, like when I see Andy Serkis, I still think of like a pretty young, fit dude.
Yeah,
I know he's 57, but like compared to the other,
I think of his like Ulysses Call. I mean, Gollum. I mean, a lot of these other people. I mean, it's just. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. So hopefully maybe it'll flesh it out. And still, to this day, we have never got a comic accurate looking Alfred. None of the cast Alfreds have ever looked like the comics Alfred.
J.K. Simmons would be.
Yeah, I still don't see it. Because, like, I mean, when I think of Alfred, I think of the side hair, bald on top, mustache. That's the Alfred in the comics.
And
dark hair.
He should be like mid 60s, 70s.
Right,
like somewhere.
mid 60s.
Yes.
Or like late 50s, middle 60s. But instead,
obviously British, refined. But
that's how it should be. It should be, but it wasn't.
I understand, right? We saw different takes on all the characters in this movie, like literally with everybody. A new Batman, a new Penguin, and
yet somehow it felt pretty comic accurate though too.
Yeah, they did. But for some reason, this Alfred just really stands out.
He does,
and I don't know. I mean, I trust Matt Reeves, but. He has time to flesh him out, but dude, I still don't know, man.
I don't see it. I really, really don't see it. So hopefully maybe it'll get better in the future sequels, but we'll see. All right, next up we have to talk about Carmine Falcone or Falcone, whichever you pronounce it. People pronounce it different ways. And then played by John Turturro. What do you think?
I thought his performance was great.
I think they chose a good actor. I just don't see him as Carmine Falcone.
Exactly. I didn't agree with some of Reeves' decisions with here too. First of all, why was he always wearing glasses?
Yeah, he was indoors, outdoors. Most of the time it's dark in Gotham anyway, so he's wearing sunglasses.
I guess to be honest, when I picture Falcone, I picture like a slightly like larger, more intimidating,
large, tough mob boss. That's what I picture.
But this Falcone was skinny, glasses, and even in his scenes, I didn't feel too intimidated.
And
by
plus,
him.
I mean, I recognize John Turturro mostly from the Transformers original trilogy.
Yeah,
and in that he's a comedic relief. So it's really hard to picture him as Carmine Falcone in this movie because the whole time I was just thinking of him in Transformers. So that was a little bit difficult.
Mom, it's a guy from Transformers.
He was in it. He was so funny. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think that how they did his character was great. I just felt the casting was a little bit of a miss. I feel like if they would have casted a bigger, stronger, older, kind of like mid-50s guy, been better.
I think the Gotham show did a really good job with their
I love their Falcone. I mean, he was a lot older than he should have been, but I think they did a good job with that. And I mean, I think without the prosthetics, Colin Farrell would have played a great Carmine Falcone. I think without it, like he would have.
You think he would have been a good Falcone?
I think he would have been a good Falcone.
I think he could have been better. But man, like I said, the actor's performance nutty, right?
Yeah.
But
he did a good job.
As far as Reeves' decision with how he wanted the character to look, and I was never intimidated by this boss, and I feel like I should have been.
Right. I mean, he choked out a lot of people.
He did choke a lot of people.
He choked out a lot of people.
Primary
tried to choke his own daughter too.
I know, bro.
Which Catwoman, we didn't even say that. Carmine Falcone's daughter, perfect, straight out of the comics. Great iteration. Love that.
I know. I'm glad. I'm definitely glad they touched on that. Yeah, man. Homie got a thing for choking.
He does. He likes to choke women.
Just grab your neck. Let me just grab your neck.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, I would love to see a different casting, but I did love how they showed like how in the comics he has that big old scar across his face from Catwoman scratching him.
Yeah,
I loved how they showed that in the movie. I did like that, but then again, they just killed him off though.
I wish they wouldn't have killed him off. Yeah, no. But then again, Penguin wouldn't have a chance to shine.
Yeah, no.
I guess they already touched on Falcone, but. Oh well,
yeah.
It's like good and bad.
Right.
He died.
He was the rats that Riddler was pointing towards,
which was crazy. I never would have guessed.
I never would have thought that. I mean, my head went
Penguin.
My head went to Penguin first, and then my head went to somebody else, and then I was like,
I thought Batman the whole time because a rat with wings. I was like, that's a bat. That's a bat. But obviously he's not a rat. But it was Falcone.
Like Falcon.
Just trying to wait. Actually,
well, that's what they were saying. Like the pigeon with wings representing a falcon. Falcone.
How is it? I don't understand. Maybe I just don't know enough about animals.
That's a possibility. But yeah, I mean, I feel like his character could have been fleshed out a little bit better. And but I think overall it was good. It's just I feel like the casting could have been a little bit better. The actor was great. He did a great job. I feel like he would have been better. I don't even know who else he would have played in this movie. Maybe he would have been better like DA or something like that. I don't know.
I think he would have been really good as one of the corrupt cops.
Yeah, something like that.
I think so.
I feel like he would have been good. But As Carmine Falcone, it's kind of but obviously he's dead now, so I don't have to worry about him anymore.
Psych, you died.
But anyway, that concludes Carmine Falcone. All right. So now, of course, major spoilers. So if you've not seen this movie, please leave. Come back. Because these are this is probably the biggest spoiler of the movie. So we have to talk about our final and probably biggest character left that was remaining, and that being the Joker.
I thought you were going to say SpongeBob, and I got kind of worried. The Joker.
The Joker, played by Barry Keoghan.
Listen, we had heard rumors that there was going to be an end credit scene.
We knew Barry Keoghan was going to be in it, but we didn't know what character, and then we realized.
I didn't think he was even confirmed to be in it.
He was confirmed.
I knew they were screen testing, one version with the jail scene, one version without.
He literally posted Instagram like in May 2021 with a jacket with a bat symbol on it and Batman symbols in the caption. That's literally what he posted.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But everybody was just thinking he was just going to be like a cop or a side figure. And then, of course, the rumors started to sprout about the Joker. And then originally I was kind of like, I wanted the Joker to be in it in like this area, and then I didn't. So a little bit of both, but I was glad in the end that he was. And his scene, it was a perfect iteration of how Joker would be. So I really like that. I'm just not sold on the casting yet. Of course, we got to see him again. I can't judge it from just a scene. But I'm not sold yet.
Also, we got to see half of his face.
Right. I love the look.
I did like to see his mouth was disfigured. Right?
I love the look. Saw a little bit of his hair. He looked a little white figure. I loved the look. I think the look is great, and going from like the disfigured face image, fantastic. I love that version. However, I feel like, and his dialogue was great. I just don't like Barry Keoghan's like take on it, to be honest. Like, he was like talking about like, it makes you look like a clown, which obviously that was Joker, obviously.
Yep.
And then him telling Riddler an actual riddle and saying, what's better when you have very little friends, all that, whatever. And then they start laughing. I hate his laugh. I really don't like his Joker laugh. I can see him development to get better later, but to me, it sounded like a little kid running. It sounded like Aang from Avatar's laugh. It literally did. Like that. Like I hated it. But maybe it'll develop in the future, and I'm not going to diss him. But
I say the laugh is something you can develop,
right?
And I think he'll continue to get better. But from first looks, right, this is a younger Joker, younger Batman, and with time, he's only going to get more crazy, more disfigured, more maniacal. Right. So, I'm really excited. I hope they don't bring him into the third movie.
It's a super, super hard role to fill, because the last two live action Jokers won Oscars, if you think about it. So it's going to be, it's a hard role to fill. Because, the Joker is such a hard casting.
That could almost make or break your career.
It really could.
Like, really.
Because the Joker, it legit is probably the hardest role to play in comic book history. It really is. Yeah. It's so hard to play. You need a great actor to play the Joker.
You gotta get a dope method actor.
You got to. So hopefully he'll kill it. I've only ever seen him as Druig in Eternals. So I've never seen any of his other projects.
Dude, I saw him. My mom's watching Chernobyl on HBO Max, and he's in it.
Oh, is he really?
Bro, from what I've seen, he's pretty good.
Yeah, which I loved him as Druig in Eternals. That was my favorite character in Eternals.
Dude, his face, though, like, I feel like fits the Joker.
It does. It really does.
It does. Like, I would, if you gave me like a lineup of people without makeup, be like, okay, he looks like Joker.
He looks like Joker. I'm just not sure if he can voice him and embody the Joker, is what I'm saying. We'll see. I'm confident.
Hopes up.
Hopes up. Definitely hopes up. And just don't get it confused, though, because Joker is not going to be the main villain of the sequel. I don't think he will be.
Yeah, bro, he's the biggest, biggest bad. They gotta save him for the end of the trilogy.
They do. And I think it'd be cool to have him like in each movie, just like pulling the strings.
Yeah.
Because that's how Joker is. You can't have really Batman without the Joker. Because, you can't, they complete each other. They really do. They're the arch enemies. That's Joker's the biggest comic book villain in history.
You got order and chaos, light and dark.
Right. that's literally the two. And to see that illustrated where he's pulling the strings would be really dope to see. Just not the main villain yet.
I agree. Bring in Corner Owls for number 2, and then throw Joker in for number 3.
Or maybe even another one. We'll see. We'll see what's happening there. All right. And that concludes our characters. Quite a bit to go over, but now we're going into a little bit deeper our pros of the movie. Just pros, non-character related pros. All right. So what's some pros? You want to hit us off the first
pro? All right, I made a list. Gotcha. I made sure a lot of my pros and cons were kind of listed in the characters, so I tried to take them out.
Right.
But listen, one of my biggest pros I had was the realism of the Batman. In some comics and movies, it's made it seem like he's almost impossible to beat. Like he's basically a god. But here we see him suffering. We see him getting shot point blank with shotguns.
Right.
Another thing I've always thought about, like how he just like disappears, you know, in previous Batman content, but in here, like it doesn't. The whole like the chase scene in the police department, crazy cool. It's not just like, you know, they blink and then he's gone.
Flying off the villain,
off
the building, and in a
it's cool.
super comedic way, falling.
Then he smacks it. Yeah,
right. It's realistic.
I really appreciate it. It was realistic, and they showed the struggle of a young Batman still figuring it out,
how to become Batman.
That was a huge pro for me.
I agree. I agree with that completely. I mean that was, I didn't even think about, like, you know, talking about that sense of how it was very realistic, but that's what Matt Reeves was hugely going for. He wanted to be so realistic.
Yeah,
like, that's what I loved about this movie, is because this can happen. Like, legitimately could happen. Very
Elon Musk. We're calling you
Iron Man. I know this could happen. It's crazy enough too. So that was really cool. But a huge pro for me. This is a broad one, but it's a huge pro because it's true. The plot was phenomenal. I would give the plot a very, very high score because it was so well illustrated. I was never bored except for like one little part, and that I'll talk about that in the cons. And it was just so well illustrated from the, you know, starting off the Riddler and then ending it with the Batman was just great. And how they did that and how the change of justice, like it was so cool. And I loved that. And I had the plot.
All right. I have to go with for my next pro, the overall cinematography and like in the color scheme.
Very beautiful.
This color scheme was amazing, right? You have dark background colors, and then kind of further up you have like yellow, red, and like orange hues. And it was perfect because those are highlighting the background, and then you have your main characters front and center. So the way it was shot from the different perspectives was crazy, right? How does the movie start? It starts from Riddler's perspective, him looking through his binoculars. Right after that, we see a shot looking down at the mayor through the skylight. That is so cool, dude. So just, man, I can't even begin to talk about, dude, the cinematography in this movie is absolutely gorgeous.
I agree.
It's so pleasing to watch.
It is. I completely agree with that. And because of that, you know, to piggyback off that as a pro, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but more of an experience. The cinematography allowed it to be more of an experience. Like I said, like we talked about this a little bit earlier in the podcast, but like it was more like I felt like I was in the movie. So much so, like I felt like I was playing the video games. I felt like I was reading a Batman comic book.
Yeah,
that's how it felt. It didn't feel like necessarily I was sitting watching a movie, and I loved that. And the cinematography definitely played to that, and the plot played to that, where it felt like I was immersed into it, which was a huge pro I had. And I feel like, and I've heard from many other people. I've seen, you know, of course, TikToks talking about it, reports, articles saying it was an experience, and that was so true. And that's a big pro I have.
I agree. Another huge pro I had. You know me, you know I love Dave Fincher, his style of movies. But that's my one of my big pros. The style of this movie, it was so inspired by Seven by David Fincher. The serial killer, riddle after riddle, like mystery after mystery after mystery, like. How do you stop this? And like basically like down to the detail with the villains giving themselves up. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think how else they could have done the Riddler better in the style of the movie, and I can't really. Right. Like that inspiration was perfect.
It was. I mean,
and Matt Reeves killed that. So
fantastic.
The style, the not murder mystery, but like the detective mystery rather.
I got you saying.
Was crazy cool to see in a superhero film, because we haven't when's the last time we've seen that?
Not in in a long time.
I can't think of one right now.
No. So I think that I agree completely with that. And another pro I have in general that kind of piggybacks a little bit off that as well is the dialogue. I enjoyed the dialogue, especially from Batman when he's like having his monologue narration. Perfect. Yeah. And that's how Batman is. And seeing that, especially in the beginning when he's like, I am the shadows. Chills. I had chills. I was loving it.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole dialogue with that and the whole dialogue in general with the other movie, Penguin's dialogue, Riddler's dialogue, fantastic. I mean, I just really appreciate that. And to also with that, another pro I have with dialogue is acting and how they perform the dialogue. Fantastic. I mean, I don't think there was one, even though Andy Serkis' Alfred is not a fan of, there wasn't a bad acting performance. I think they all acted very well. I just don't necessarily like Matt Reeves' interpretation of some of these characters.
I agree.
Which that's where that kind of comes from. But love the dialogue and acting just hand in hand were perfect.
I love it. And the only thing wrong was just some of Bruce Wayne's stuff, I felt like.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne was the whispering. No.
The whispering. but besides that, it was goated.
It was.
Another pro I had is the new take on the Batmobile. I know that's like something Batman fans like cherish really hard,
Very
you know.
much,
And typically we see like the same kind of model of car used for it, but like it looked like a Hellcat. Like it really did. It was a modified like car. You know, not a.
This is like
I
an
can't
armored
even
car.
tell you, but it seemed more realistic.
It did.
In that aspect.
I loved it. I think that was one of my favorite Batmobiles. I agree completely. Like, I mean, seeing that, I mean, the Dark Knight was more of a tank, and that wasn't necessarily a Batmobile.
I know that they're just running over cars, but like this was an actual car, just like, you know, just super upgraded and modified.
I think it was dope as well. And if you know, having some previous knowledge to the Batmobile, he worked on that from a little boy with his dad. He worked on that until like he modified it as Batman. So that was pretty cool to know a little bit of knowledge about Batmobile. So that I love that. I completely agree with that. And to go along with the Batmobile, just Batman technology in this movie in general. Specifically talk about the contact lens.
Yeah.
Dude, that was insane.
Have we ever seen something like that?
I personally haven't.
So was that just like a Matt Reeves decision to throw that in?
I mean, that could have been in the comics, but I don't remember.
That makes perfect sense. In a movie about the world's greatest detective, what better way to recap and go over all your information than to play it out in front of you?
Right. Like,
I thought that was bro, when he took out his contact and showed it, dude, I was
is that technology real?
I was freaking out, dude.
Like, that technology, dude, like, that would be shoot.
That's OP.
That would be OP. Like, military tactic wise, like, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, just eyes everywhere.
Right.
Oh, but man, dude, I can't even lie. That was
so cool.
Oh my gosh.
So cool. And then the use of it to give it to Catwoman so he could see what's going on within the club because he knew he couldn't be there was greatly used as well. And that whole other bat technology. I mean, you had the typical stuff. He didn't really explain out his technology. You had like the batarang. You had the I don't know, what do you call it, the grappling hook, the back grappling hook, the
that was
belt.
cool coming out of his hand.
Right.
You know?
That was cool, just like flipping it out of his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just cool in general. And then, of course, the adrenaline we see later as well. All of this stuff played really heavily, and I enjoyed the bat technology. I still think that the Bale and the Nolan trilogy does a better job with the technology.
Yeah, because they have Fox in it.
They have Lucius. Yeah. But I think that this movie did a pretty good job, and the contact lens itself was phenomenal.
That was the coolest introduction, really.
And that was a huge pro I had as well.
I love that. Another this is kind of more broad, but I have the first act.
Yeah.
It's my opinion that this first act is possibly the best out of any comic book movie in history, really. Like, I think it's better than Dark Knight's first act.
Yeah.
The Batman's whole dialogue, the introduction of Riddler's character, it is ominous, it's creepy, it's thrilling, it's exciting. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
With that first act, especially that first 20 to 30 minutes is beautiful.
It is a beautiful
so
movie.
like I said, I know that's more broad, but that was like the high point of the movie. It was like the beginning.
Dude, yeah, I completely agree. That beginning just threw me for a loop.
Dude, bro, it hit different.
For the whole time I was just like chills. Literal chills.
Literal chills.
All right, this is my final pro for the movie, and that is how it is a detective film in general. I have to highlight the detective aspects of this movie. We've never gotten that from a Batman film well executed, and we've never really gotten that from anything Batman. I mean, the Arkham games do touch on that, but this one just full heavily goes for like the detective mode Batman that we've never really, we've kind of been craving as fans of the character. And to see that detective and see him investigating the riddle and figuring out these things, figuring out the thumb drive and all that other stuff in the El Rata Tata or whatever it was called, URL. It was URL. And all that stuff was dope.
Yeah.
And figuring out, the Falcone case, the Falcon, Pigeon Stool, all that stuff was great to me. All the detective aspects that went into the riddle or went into this movie was fantastic. I have to have it as a pro.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I have two left really quick. The first one I have was the action scenes that were filmed. First of all, in the fight scenes, the choreography was amazing.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah. Definitely better than the Christian Nolan trilogy.
Dude, and that was like one of the biggest weaknesses of the Christian Nolan trilogy, that the cinematography. Sorry, not the choreography wasn't that good, but the fight scenes in here were really good, and they're realistic. Like we mentioned earlier, we see Batman struggling, we see him getting beat up, but we see it takes a toll on him. So I really love those action scenes, and then obviously the car chase scene is probably, we'll talk about it later, but that scene was absolutely crazy.
Out of this world. Yeah.
But then for my last bro, I had Batman's character development throughout the movie. Right in the beginning, we hear like I am the shadows. Like he is convinced that nothing he's doing like makes a difference, but yet he's still doing the same exact thing night after night after night, and it's giving way to a new breed of criminals.
Animal.
Yeah, it's not working. What he's doing isn't working, and he recognizes that, but he doesn't know how to change. However, through the movie, we see that he realizes that he has to be a light for these people, a hope for these people. That violence like isn't always the answer,
the whole time.
right? Which Bruce Wayne, later will help with that. But that's exemplified in the third act when he's leading the people out of the water, when he's helping them evac like in the day, like he's being that hope that the city needs. So the character development just through the first movie, I thought was pretty outstanding.
It was solid. I think I completely agree. The character development of Batman was phenomenal, and I can't wait to get even more character development in the coming movies. Just the character development of Bruce Wayne was non-existent.
Yeah, it really was. We just got to see Bruce Wayne's character in the next film.
So we'll see what happens. All right, so the cons. I'll start us off the cons. They're very, for me anyway, they're pretty small. They're minor. They're nothing like huge. They're just, small things. Because, any movie there's not a perfect movie out there. My favorite movie is not perfect. So, there's not a perfect movie. So there's going to be a few cons. But some of my ones I'll highlight, of course, they're small, is the difficulty explaining things that this movie does. Now, this movie does a good job when it comes to, like, comic fans or people that are, like, diehard fans who like want to analyze every single subject. Like it's not that hard to follow in that sense when you're really like looking and like wanting to figure out stuff. However, if you're not a comic book fan or you're not a Batman fan, I can see them not liking this movie because they're like, what just happened? I'm so confused. I can see that happen. I can see my dad going to see it. Like he likes movies and he likes this kind of stuff, but he doesn't like movies where he has to think super heavily. But
I love that.
I love that.
I know
but a lot of people don't. And, I feel like you gotta, even if you're a movie like this, you gotta, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like kind of
relate to
younger audience.
All fans.
You think, I would disagree. I would say like this should be like the standard for how Batman films should be as far as like thinking.
I feel like thinking is great and it should be. I feel like just some certain things could have been explained better and more highlighted than it was. Which I know it's hard to do on screen as to like reading, but I feel like that would have been done. And I can see like other non like comic book fans and non like Batman movie loving fans not liking it because of those things. So that's what I'm saying with that.
Okay.
So that's my first con.
I see. My first con, I have like a little couple sub points with it. But to be honest, it's the majority of the third act. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was decent. But I feel like the third act is really where this movie was it takes a hit. First of all, in the third act, I know there's not a lack of villain, but it feels like there is, right? Riddler's locked up the whole time, so Batman is just trying to stop the flood, right? So we don't really see much of the Riddler in that. I thought it was kind of cheesy with the whole, I know it's symbolic, Batman leading the people out with a flare, but most of those people weren't even trapped, and they just could have gotten out of the water themselves. And with the whole Riddler in the jail, I feel like, I know he can't fight, but just having him give up the same way as we see in 7 and just like, no, Riddler for the third act is crazy. So we just see him fighting Riddler's goonies who are convinced. So the villain in the third act kind of rubs me the wrong way. Okay. And then I don't understand Riddler's, whole mind process behind, suddenly flooding a city when he was obsessed with killing the, corrupt politicians and stuff. Because there's a lot of innocent people in the city, and he realizes that. So the whole third act, I feel like, is kind of not there.
Really? I would disagree. I really enjoyed the third act. Mostly, I can see where you're coming from for sure when it comes to the Riddler and how he kind of wasn't there, but that's just Riddler's character. You're not going to have a Riddler-Batman standoff because that's just not existent. Batman would whoop him.
Yeah,
so he wouldn't stand a chance. But I think the whole thing with Riddler is we have to realize he is insane. Like, he's not all there. So when he wanted to flood the city, I think he's wanting to flood the city of all corruption as to getting rid of just the corruption of the politicians. Because he doesn't care about, like, innocent lives. He couldn't give a crap.
Okay, I understand that. But I don't see in the movie where that switch happens.
Yeah.
Because for the first two acts, like you said, he's obsessed with taking out the corruption. But where in the movie does he switch over to now?
He was more obsessed with working with Batman than he was the corruption. I feel like he wanted to work with Batman together to get rid of all the corruption.
He was using the corruption as like
I do
his main thing to get with the Batman, because you know that the Batman felt a similar way.
Right. I do think that. I feel like, we have to realize he loves to play games. He is a Riddler. He likes to joke around. He likes to plan out his, attacks and do everything like that, and wants to work with Batman as shown in this movie to kind of flood out all of the corruption. He kind of wants to be his own superhero, just going around the wrong ways of doing it. So, in kind of just wanting to purge Gotham, I guess, of all of this corruption by this flood, by kind of baptizing them in a way. That's the perspective I'm seeing.
I just wish we could have seen like a definitive moment where he was like, you know what?
And that's what goes with my...
the city is too screwed. Right. There's too much corruption. I'll just kill everybody. But we don't see that.
That's what goes with my difficult explaining some things. That's one of my cons, of course, with that. I feel like that's what Matt Reeves was going for, but it just didn't explain well.
Yeah.
So I can see where
it's like, okay, why is he trying to commit mass murder now after 2 acts?
But other than that, I loved, most of the third act personally. All right. Another con for me is the slow end of the first act and the slow beginning of the second act. That was the big chunk of the movie where I was kind of like losing it a little bit. I was like, is it going to pick up? I hope it picks up. Because from that point on, it was like right after they introduced Catwoman, like a little bit after that, up until the funeral scene with the bomb and stuff. That whole part of the movie to me was kind of boring, to be fair. And at that part of the movie, I was just kind of losing a little bit interest. Most of that was the first watch. I feel like I found it more enjoyable the second watch. But still, in that part, I was just like, okay. It could have been a little bit better. It could have been a little bit more entertaining. Could have had a few more action scenes there than what there was. But that's just a little small. I mean, it's a small thing. It's not like a huge deal because it brought me back. And movies that do that are great. So I'm glad that they did that. But that was just a little bit slow for me, so that's why.
Gotcha. Okay. Another. This one's very, very minor because I'm saving some of the big ones for later. But there is, I feel like a lot of too many like really obvious woke themes throughout the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. They just kind of felt like shoved in your face, and you could see obviously like where Matt Reeves and Warner Brothers stood, with their politics in the movie. But a lot of it was just like in your face.
Yeah, I agree.
Like regarding the different characters and who is evil, who is good, with the different races. But I don't know. At the end of the day, like I said, it's minor, but I don't know. It was just, I feel like a lot of it was just like pointless, to be honest. Okay. It could have been, fine just without it.
I see what you're saying. And then come from that minor con is a little bit lengthy. I mean, I love a long movie. I always do. I mean, I'm a huge sucker for like a 2.5 hour movie. I really am. But when it's this long, and it could have either, I can think of certain scenes like the end of the first act and beginning of the second act could have been cut. It would have, I feel like, flowed a little bit better, to be honest. That's just my perspective. A little bit lengthy, but I enjoyed the movie as a whole though. So not big deal.
All right, let me go back at you because I also have this one, but I have it as a major con rather than the minor. I think that this movie spends way too much time on shots when it could be cut straight to the point. Christopher Nolan, if he directed this movie, it would be about, I feel like 30 to 45 minutes shorter. He spent 2.5 hours on Dark Knight, and there wasn't a wasted shot. It's action after action after action. But even like in the first shot of Batman, it takes like him 15 seconds to walk out of the dark. Right. So you see in this movie,
I like that scene, but other scenes like that. I agree.
But I don't know, dude. There's just so many shots of just the characters walking in hallways, walking into the rooms, and that really takes about like 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. I see what Matt Reeves is trying to do. He's trying to like build a suspense, but he spends so much time. I feel like on these minor little just like scenes trying to get somewhere, and then obviously the movie I feel like is too long as a result. I feel like if this movie was 2.5 instead of 3 would have been better, and I really think they could have put everything in 2.5.
I agree. So, I see what you're saying.
I think, in my opinion, that's a major. But I can.
If you had Zack Snyder directing this movie, Riddler would have finished the whole song and sung it like another like bridge and everything else, and they would have like the scenes. Batman would have walked in and then walked back out, walked back in, like, and then it would have been like a freaking 6-hour movie.
Yeah, no, it would have. It would have.
Anyway, but I think Matt Reeves did a good job for what he did, but I do agree with what you're saying. Now, this comes to be a pretty big con I have. I mean, none of these cons are like huge, but this one, I don't like how they did Thomas and Martha Wayne's story and their execution of that. I feel like it could have been a lot better because the whole basis of Batman is the mystery surrounding who killed the Waynes. And them showing it being like Falcone killed the Waynes after working with them. I don't like that really that much.
In the first movie,
I don't think that was really a good execution. I mean, they could go back and like retcon that and say, oh, he was lying or this didn't actually happen. They could do that, and I could see that, and that would be better. But I just still don't feel like that it was explained well. And personally, like whenever it shows like Thomas and Martha Wayne from the past, I just don't resonate with them much. I feel like, honestly, even though this is not supposed to be an origin story, I feel like the film would have been a lot better if it did start with the alley scene where they died and then just went to year 2 Batman. I feel like that would have been a great scene too. I mean, maybe start with the Riddler and then go back in time, or maybe like in a dream sequence, Bruce Wayne wakes up after his death or something, like a flashback in the middle of the movie or something like that. That way we could get a little bit more perspective, especially for non-Batman fans coming to see it and like, what happened to his parents? But I mean, I understand, but I don't really like the way that they illustrated it personally. I feel like it could have been better. And maybe they'll, highlight it more as the films come on, but we'll see.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought of that one, but thanks for pointing that out. This is a very minor point because I have two bigger ones to end it. But obviously, right in the beginning when Batman he beats up that group of criminals, he says on vengeance, which is a dope line. But like throughout the movie, you just see that line repeated and repeated, both by Catwoman and then the criminals like underground. And my question with that is, obviously that wasn't on TV, it wasn't broadcasted publicly. So why is everyone coming out and just calling him Vengeance? Like even the Riddler goon at the end when he beats him up, like, who are you? I'm Vengeance. How does he know Batman said
how
that?
Does he know Vengeance?
First of all, he shouldn't. He beat the crap out of those guys. How did Catwoman? No, she's like, whatever, Vengeance. Like.
Or Penguin when he's yelling vengeance as he shoots.
There's so I get that vengeance is his motive, right? But I'm not sure if they know that. But just this one line he says in the beginning of the film, it's just over and over by the criminals. Like, how would they know that?
I see what you're saying.
I mean, like I said, that point is minor. It's not huge at all. But like just like little stuff like that will quirk me sometimes.
I got you. And my final con. Again, it's minor, and I've already touched on it, is, of course, I just want to highlight it again, is the Bruce Wayne plus the Batman and Catwoman chemistry. I did not like that as well. I feel like it could have been executed better, but still very minor, and we've already highlighted it. I just want to highlight it again.
Got you. I got two left. I know I said earlier for one of my pros that I like the realism of the Batman in the fights, but I also have that as a con, which is weird. But I wasn't a big fan of his bulletproof armor. Okay. Let me walk you through, because like in the film, I'd assume he takes at least like 50 to 100 shots, like easily, right? He's getting pelted in one hallway by a bunch of submachine guns, and he walks out fine. And when you have bulletproof armor and he's able to take all these shots, it just feels like this plot hole where he truly can do anything and not have to dodge like in the comics or throw his like. We didn't see him throw any batarangs to disarm people or
the only
anything
time
in this
he
take.
ever like was the batarang like in his chest, and he just uses a knife. Like that's all he uses it as.
That's what was cool with Nolan's trilogy, right? Christian Bale just drop out of nowhere, not get shot, and disarm everybody. Here, Batman's just walking through hallways, all intimidating.
I agree.
It felt like Darth Vader, just walking through hallways, but it didn't matter, right? He has a bulletproof suit, so I feel like that created a plot hole where he could truly do anything and not have to rely on his skill.
I wish they would have just interpreted where he was dodging bullets more so than getting shot. Maybe shot a couple of times, so that way it shows that like he can take it a little bit, but not necessarily where he's flipping shot with a shotgun. Then 5 minutes later he's up attacking people.
I know. Like point blank with a shotgun, dude. Batman would never like allow that to be happen.
I mean, that would have broke ribs. That would have took his breath absolutely away. Which I know the adrenaline excuse, but then again, with that, I feel like he wouldn't have even been real conscious to do it. Like, I really don't.
I'm saying I really feel like look, it's a dope concept, but they relied on it so much of the movie. I mean, maybe if he didn't get shot as much, it would be fine. But man, I didn't like it. And here's possibly my biggest issue with the movie. Throughout the first and the second act, the movie shows Riddler and Batman as different, right? It's shown, right, Batman's good, trying to wipe out corruption, but Riddler's really bad, but he's wiping out corruption. The point is they're both trying to stop corruption in the city of Gotham. First of all, and that doesn't make sense because ultimately they're trying to show them to be different, but ultimately it shows them to be the same.
Well,
which
Riddler kills people.
I know, and that well, to be honest, that's like really the only difference.
Yeah,
like between the two, Batman is beating the crap out of people,
right,
and then Riddler's killing people, right? Obviously, a more permanent solution. So I feel like in order to actually differentiate the two, to make sure you know that Batman is actually good and Riddler is actually evil, he floods the city in like this mass murder attempt to differentiate the two. Like, yes, we know through previous, stuff that Riddler's bad, Batman is good. But during the first two acts, they're essentially trying to accomplish the same goal. So how does the movie try to differentiate the two? By taking a massive leap and
I agree,
trying to kill a bunch of people, which Batman wouldn't do.
I see what you're saying.
I feel like that's such a big jump you have to make.
But I personally like how it shows that they are pretty similar. Because whenever you have stories like, you have, a Batman or Riddler and they're pretty similar characters, or protagonists and antagonists that are very similar, but have different longevity goals and of illustrating, they both want to get rid of corruption, but they both have different ways of executing it. I mean, I think that's pretty cool, to be honest, actually, to see that, for my opinion, personally.
Got you.
All right. So I believe that completes our cons. So we're going to quickly go through some of our favorite scenes. We're going to highlight a few of our, both me and Nathan's favorite scenes. So first off, what was one of your favorite scenes in the movie?
I gotta say, first of all, and I think this will be the majority of fans, but dude, the car chase was crazy. I can't even imagine seeing it in IMAX,
dude.
But that was one of the best, if not the best, car chase scene I've seen in any movie. The music,
Fantastic.
the fire,
it wasn't too long, wasn't too
dark
short.
Colors. I felt scared for Penguin.
I did.
I really did.
I know.
For the villain.
Right. And then in the rain pouring down, the fire, it shows later. And then when they're driving through literal traffic, on what looked like an interstate, dude.
See, that was stressing me out.
It was, me too.
It's an experience.
Exactly.
And he's going against traffic. I'm like, man.
Exactly. And I love the shots when it's point of view of driving. And you can see, you're like, there's a car coming at me.
You were driving.
I legit did. In some cases, that was dope. I completely agree. That was an amazing scene. And just whenever, Penguin gets flipped and Batman comes walking towards him, perfect.
It's cool, isn't it?
Such a great scene. So I have that one listed as well. But I also have, of course, the beginning of the movie, the opening scene, plus when he's talking about his monologue in the shadows and him beating up the criminals and just showing that he's there in Gotham. Love that. One of the coolest scenes in probably Batman history. And I think it just perfectly sums up the character. And I love that. So I had that as
I agree. I only had two written down, and that was my other one. The monologue fit perfectly with what he was doing. But those are my favorite two.
Right. And I loved, I agree with your con about the dislike of the flood scene and how it didn't really make sense. But I loved the scene itself, if that makes sense. It wasn't executed very well, but the scene was cool. And I have it. I love the ending. I think that was cool. And I love how it's stripped straight from the comic Zero Year, where Riddler floods Gotham City, literally straight up. And also No Man's Land, where something an earthquake devastates, natural disaster stuff going on in Gotham City. I love that aspect. And I really enjoyed, even though you said it was kind of cheesy, I think it was kind of dope when he, has the flare and he's leading the people out of the flood. Because it just shows he's a leading figure of it, and he's now turned into a symbol of hope more so than a symbol of vengeance. Yeah. And I love that realization at the end there as well, when he's he no longer needs to be vengeance, but he needs to be hope and justice. And I love that, and that's why I had that as one of my favorite scenes as well.
Yeah. I will admit, retrospectively, that the scene from up top where he has a flare and you have this triangle of people following him out. I love that scene. Like I said, I think the way it happened was a little cheesy, but the scene in and of itself, the cinematography, and then the whole symbolism, right? He's a light now.
Right.
He's holding the light up in the darkness rather
the symbolism is amazing.
Than being the shadow in the darkness.
Exactly.
Like you said earlier, those themes are really cool to see.
Right. I agree. All right. Do you have any more favorite scenes there?
Nah, that's all I have.
We're going to move on to talk about Easter eggs that were in this movie. There was not too many that I caught, but there's a couple we'll highlight here. So first off, the biggest one is it's inspired by the comics Batman Year One and The Long Halloween, which I can definitely tell. I've not read The Long Halloween, but I've seen the movie, and I can definitely tell it's definitely influenced that. But I have read some of Year One, and it's definitely heavily a lot like Year One. And then I love that. And one of the biggest Easter eggs I caught was the little boy, the mayor's son. Whenever Batman looks at him, he's wearing all red after the loss of his father. Instantly, my brain goes to Robin. A future Robin. I don't think that boy will be Robin.
But it's just teasing
I think it just teases that we will get Robin. And he could, who knows, he could be like a Tim Drake. I don't see him being a Dick Grayson, but he could be like a Tim Drake maybe in the future or something like that. I don't know how they're going to do that origin there. But I think it definitely hints that. And it definitely showed throughout this movie, whenever Batman's looking at the little boy, it definitely shows that he has compassion for those who experience similar stuff.
The same thing he did.
So that's why I feel like, he would be a perfect Batman to have a Robin for a sequel.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in the Batman 2, it's got to have Robin in it. Got to. I feel like, or otherwise I'll be like, this is just the same thing again that we've all gotten so many times. I want Robin. I want the Batman Robin storyline.
Batman versus villain, I want to see a little more of the family, right?
Right. I definitely do. I mean, because that's such a major part of Batman's character that we've not really gotten. We've had 2 live action renditions of Robin. Both those movies are terrible. But no offense against the guy who does Robin, but it just doesn't. I feel like it'd be so much better, and I feel like Robert Pattinson is the perfect Batman to do that. Plus, Robin in the comics is introduced in year 3. Dick Grayson, this is year 2, so it'd be perfect to introduce him in the next year. I think.
I agree.
So hopefully we'll get Robin in the future sequels.
Let me touch back really quick on what you just mentioned about Batman sympathizing with those other orphans. That was the best part about Bruce Wayne in the film. Yeah. Even though we didn't see a lot of emotion, that was truly possibly the only thing we saw of Bruce Wayne like showing emotion and empathizing with people. And what other way to do it than to show it with a kid? Oh yeah. That was basically him.
I think that symbolism is perfect. So, and hopefully we'll get, Robin in the sequel, I hope. All right. So our next big Easter egg is the mention of Edward Elliot, who is the reporter who tried to out the Waynes of their corruption along with Falcone, but he was killed after he was trying to share this information about Falcone. However, Tommy Elliot from the comics is not, he shares the same last name as Edward Elliot, plus Tommy Elliot in the comics is Bruce Wayne's best friend in the early life. Yeah. And also he later becomes the villain Hush. So seeing that, and then plus Riddler literally says Edward Elliot was hushed. Literally says that. And then also says in big letters across the picture of the Waynes, Hush. That's a pretty big Easter egg if I've ever seen one. I don't know about you. Ooh. Of course, Edward Elliot, maybe he's mad at what happened to his father, blames the Waynes, blames Bruce after they were childhood best friends. Now he wants to go on a murder spree. That could possibly lead into a sequel.
Hush would fit perfectly. I'm trying to think, for future movies, but dude, literally, Hush.
He would be perfect for a sequel.
Number 2 would be.
He'd be perfect.
Gorgeous.
I feel like, he would be great. He's a very, very cool villain in general. He's a newer villain just introduced in early 2000s. So, it's pretty cool that maybe we'll see him. We've never seen a live action rendition of him except for Tommy Elliot we did see in Gotham. Yeah. But he never became Hush, obviously. But hopefully that could be great for the sequel. And that was the biggest hinted Easter egg for that. So maybe. Also, fans are saying this, not me personally, but when Batman injects himself with what looks to be adrenaline, a lot of people are saying it is venom.
The Bane.
Because it is green, the Bane venom. So a lot of people are saying that.
That would imply that he's already... I read a little something about that. Now that would imply he's already fought Bane, beat him.
Not necessarily.
Taken his venom and improved it for medication.
No.
Right?
In the comics, Batman, when it comes to the venom, and that could be the story that Matt Reeves is going for, but what happens is Batman is one of the key developers of this venom. And whenever he does it, he actually gets addicted to it. And he's using it constantly. Yeah. And then Bane gets it, and of course
then
influences
he turns
himself.
His body.
And then Batman, is like, I don't need this anymore, and then he stops and then has to defeat Bane, and that leads to him getting his back broken, all this storyline that goes on there.
That'd be really interesting. But I really don't see Bane in a trilogy.
I don't either. I don't see Bane at all.
And I think he's been overdone. I really think Bane's more of a side character. It's he's
a very cool
muscle.
Villain, but I feel like he would be better side villain than he would be a main villain.
Yeah, to a main villain.
Dark Knight Rises did a good job, but
would be cool.
It would be cool, but I don't think they'll go that route either. I'll talk about that when we talk about sequels.
But I hope it's just like an Easter egg rather than not a foreshadowing of what's going to happen.
I think it's just an Easter egg. All right, so do you have any Easter eggs that you remembered or saw?
I did not.
So that's all the big ones that I saw that do that. So real quick, we're going to talk about the future spinoffs that are confirmed for the Batman. So we have Penguin, the spinoff Penguin. That would be interesting. I don't know how well that will do, to be honest. I'll watch it, but I don't know how well it'll be. And then of course we have the Arkham Asylum show, which dude, I've been wanting that since forever. I've been calling for Arkham Asylum show for as long as I can remember. And to highlight that and highlight Batman's rogue galleries without Batman would be so cool to see.
So I assume at least starting with the Penguin show, it would start right with the death of Falcone.
I agree.
And just show maybe Freak. We said the same thing about Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Seeing how he starts his criminal underworld and nothing happened there.
I think this one will be better.
Yeah, of course. 10 times better. But seeing, I guess, how Colin Farrell's Penguin starts his whole, crime thing. But then the Arkham Asylum, man, that would be dope to introduce all those characters. But I think mainly like Harley Quinn.
Starting
with her, obviously,
she's got to be the main character.
Being the psychiatrist, and then I don't know, maybe tease Joker at the end, maybe have a transformation.
That's the one thing though, is I don't want Joker to be limited to his show. That's one thing that's unfortunate. I'm afraid they're going to do is like have the show be like Riddler and Joker, and like they're in their things with Arkham. I think it'd be better illustrated if you introduce Joker at the end of the show and have it be from the show be from the perspective of Dr. Harley Quinn,
the sequel,
and lead into that, and maybe have characters like Zaz in this, Hugo Strange running Arkham, all that kind of stuff.
We don't see enough of Strange.
We haven't ever got him in a live action movie before.
He's so cool. He's in Gotham.
I think he'd be a great main antagonist for the Arkham Asylum show, or just in general a sequel to the Batman. I think he would be a great villain too. And then there's also a rumored GCPD show, which I think they're going to mix that with the Arkham show. I think that's what they're going to do. But my
standalone GCPD show would not be.
I mean, we've already had it. Like. Gotham is literally about the GCPD.
Yeah.
So we've already had it. We don't really need another one. So I don't know. Maybe I hope they just merged it with Arkham Asylum. I really do. So hopefully that's what they did. But we'll see. And that's all the future spinoffs that are already greenlit. They haven't started filming yet, but they are greenlit. So we're getting
Got you.
So let's talk about some theories for sequels. So obviously when it comes to theories for sequels, we got to talk about the villain. Who, Nathan, do you wish to be the villain of the Batman 2?
All right. First of all, I think there should be 2 villains.
I do.
For Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where I'm going to go. I'm going to have Hush as kind of the side villain, right? The one you think is the main villain.
Right.
But behind everything, I think Court of Owls should be...
I have that exact word.
Are you kidding me?
Exact words.
Shut up, bro.
I wanted him to be like the secondary villain in the Court of Owls running everything.
First of all, they hinted Hush so bad, but I don't think he's big enough to be the main character.
Yeah.
But Pattison's already said, Court of Owls, the whole Matt Reeves style word perfectly.
Right.
This is about corruption, dude.
I agree.
And what's better than a group of elites running
Right.
the city?
Mm-hmm.
Batman trying to take him down. We've never seen the Court of Owls in live action
except
either.
for Gotham.
Have we? Yeah, in the movie at least, I guess.
In the movie,
but
we've never seen him.
dude, Hush.
Yeah.
Court of Owls.
I think
why
it'd
not?
be great. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of the Court of Owls storyline in the comics. I've never been a huge fan of them in general, and they're like Gotham.
I love that. That's one of my favorites.
I really have never really resonated well with it, but I think it could be well done here in a movie and well illustrated here. I think it would be cool if they did it, and hopefully they will. I don't know though. I mean, it could be Court of Owls and Hush, or it could just be Court of Owls. I don't know in the sequel, but I think it would be cool to see. And I would definitely love to see this interpretation in the live action movie because we've never seen it. And that's one thing I want to go for is I want to see a new interpretation. I want to see a new villain in a better light. That's not been overdone, if you know what I mean.
I got you.
But the biggest villain that has been teased by Matt Reeves to be a sequel is Mr. Freeze, which I would love to see an interpretation of Mr. Freeze.
I almost feel like Mr. Freeze is too good of a villain to be the villain, the main villain.
Really?
I don't think he's necessarily a terrible guy. He turned to it, right? To try to save his wife, and, in an accident, he became that. But I feel like the villains we should get should be like completely corrupted because Batman's kind of similar.
I don't know. I would love to see a Mr. Freeze interpretation because the only one we got was in Batman and Robin. That movie is terrible. And no offense to Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you got screwed.
He did.
Like, I would love to see it, especially like you've seen, I don't know how far you were in Batman, the animated series, but the Heart of Ice episode, that's one of the best episodes in the animated series.
Wait, is it actually? I watched it with Lauren the other day.
Did the Heart of Ice episode?
Yeah.
Dude, one of the best, like so good.
Did it have me in the feels,
dude,
man?
Yeah, for sure.
It was so good.
I would love that to see that, that episode or that like storyline to be adapted to a live action movie. Like Mr. Freeze is such a cool character and we've never had him done properly. And I would love to see him in a sequel. I really, really would. And to see him as a character, I think he would be cool. But maybe possibly instead of him being like he's the main villain, but you have like the overarching of the Court of Owls too. I mean, we'll see what they do, but I feel like Mr. Freeze would be dope. But also some other characters that I would like to see, and possible even further than that trilogies. I would like to see Hugo Strange as the main villain of a movie. I really would.
As a main villain.
I think he could do it.
I don't think he could.
Really? Well, Arkham City, the game, he's the main villain of that game. And he kills it. I think he wouldn't necessarily be like the villain that Batman fights, obviously. I think he'd be like pulling the strings of like Asylum like villains, like other villains like Scarecrow coming in or other characters like that. I think that'd be kind of cool. Or Scarecrow. I would love to see another interpretation of Scarecrow in a movie.
Ooh, dude, Cillian Murphy's was so good.
His was good, but he got overshadowed because he wasn't even the main villain. He was Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah,
I would love to see him as the main villain.
Yeah, and Batman Begins, that would have been cool to see.
I would have loved to see that. So hopefully we may get that, or possibly even Mad Hatter. We've never even gotten a Mad Hatter interpretation before in live action. So
no, we had a Mad Hatter in the
Gotham, but never in like the live action movies. So I'd like to see that as well. But there's all kinds of ways we could do it.
Mad Hatter would fit perfectly in this gritty realm.
I think he would too. So hopefully we could get that, and hopefully even a better Bruce Wayne in the sequels as well. But to me personally, if I had to pick who the villain of the sequel would, I would pick Mr. Freeze. I just really want to see that interpretation personally.
I would pick Court of Owls. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool, but we'll see what happens. All right. So to rank, so we have 7 different Batmen. How do you think Robert Pattison fits with those other Batmen when it comes to his portrayal?
Are we talking overall? Are we talking Bruce Wayne, Batman, or just a general character?
Overall.
So not the actor, just the character.
His portrayal of like Robert Pattinson compared to the others. Like there we have George Clooney, Val Kilmer, Adam West, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Christian Bale.
Right now, I think he still sits at number 2 behind Bale.
I don't think he does.
I think he just because I feel like Bale with Nolan's direction was able to flesh out more Bruce Wayne, and he was still a pretty dope Batman. Like we said, we've only seen one movie. I don't think one movie from Pattison without Bruce Wayne is enough to catapult him above one of the best actors of all time.
Yeah.
So I still have Christian Bale number 1.
I think Robert Pattinson is the best Batman live action portrayal. I do still think Christian Bale's is the best Bruce Wayne.
Wait, are we talking?
I'm talking overall, but like I'm just saying, like I think he's the best Batman.
Gotcha.
I mean, I don't know how you think about Batman wise. Do you
No,
think?
yeah, no, I agree that Pattison is the best Batman.
Overall, I still think just because, of course, we have Batman is better. I feel like Robert Pattinson's still. I think he's number 1 right now.
Really over
because
Bale?
I can see him being a better Bruce Wayne in the future of the movies, and just because of his Batman is the best live action comic book accurate Batman that we've ever gotten. I think I've got to put him number 1. But of course, Bale's number 2. But 1, Robert Pattinson. He killed it. And I think he'll continue to kill it. So I'm excited to see this.
Listen, my list is definitely subject to change because, like I said, we got more Pattinson content coming up, but I just haven't seen enough yet. But
so hopefully we'll see some more. All right. So some final thoughts here as we rank it. So how do you think the Batman compares to the famous Dark Knight movie?
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, it doesn't.
It's very hard to compare the two.
You're trying to, right? It's two characters, but the style of the movies are completely different. I mean, you're talking Christopher Nolan in a movie about themes of the light and dark, chaos and order, and then you're talking a detective mystery like Seven type movie. So first of all, like the movie styles in and of themselves are not comparable. At all. The directing is not. They're completely different.
Right. They really are.
Like I don't know how people can just like sit back and be like.
But if you had to,
like rank which one's better.
Yeah, which one?
I mean, obviously Dark Knight.
Really,
dude. Well, you gotta think. Dark Knight is considered a top 5 film of all time.
Right.
Yes, there's some things the Batman does better, and it's a good movie. But the Dark Knight just has so many less plot holes. The directing's better. I'd say overall the acting's better. And like I said, Christopher Nolan doesn't waste any of his shots. The villain's better. One, if not the best all time villain performance we've seen.
Right.
So overall, dude, if you're comfortable with saying the Batman's better than Dark Knight, you're comfortable with saying it's like a top 5 film of all time, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, that's true. I think the best way to illustrate it is, and I've heard this, is Dark Knight is the better overall movie, but the Batman is a better comic book movie.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, for sure.
The Batman is the best live action interpretation of the Batman character from the comic books that we've ever seen, and that is facts. Like, it just is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best comic book Batman movie we've ever seen, but Dark Knight, I agree, is the better overall movie, I would say. But the Batman is a better comic book movie, in my opinion.
No, listen, you said it perfectly, Michael.
I think that's just how it is. All right, so ranking this movie out of 10.
All right, I'm just gonna do whole numbers because there's a lot of little stuff that's too confusing. We're talking about 10. I don't think I've ever given someone 10, and I'm gonna keep that streak alive because I think a 9 is good with this movie. It is freaking amazing, but there's just a little a little too much wrong with it for me to give it that perfect score. Because if Dark Knight's
Right.
a 10, which is, you know,
Right.
what I'm holding it to, I'd sit it right under. A 9, it's good for me.
Okay. I would give it so hard, but
Well, see, look, you gave No Way Home.
I gave No Way Home a 10.
But like I said, it's different case.
it's they're so incomparable. I gave No Way Home a 10 because I love the movie. It's fan service. It's a great movie. It's a great Marvel movie. I give it a 10. I would give Infinity War and Endgame a 10. I mean, I love those movies. I give Winter Soldier a 10. So this one, it's just, well, I don't know if I give one. I'll give Winter Soldier like 9 points. But
cry, tears.
Dark Knight, I mean, the Batman, I'm going to give it 9.7. 9.7. I mean,
9.7?
it's a different movie. I think it's a better movie than Spider-Man No Way Home, but at the same time, it's like, it's got flaws and stuff, but it's like, I'm just trying to compare, like, when it comes to Dark Knight and stuff, it's such a hard comparison.
Yeah, because you're comparing it, like, right? Spider-Man, you're comparing it against other Marvel films.
Right.
But we don't really have much to compare the Batman to.
Right,
Because
exactly.
it's a new movie.
So, I mean, it's just really hard. I mean, it's a great movie. It's just not perfect. It's not quite a 10, but it's close. So I'll give it 9.7. I mean, I feel like it has potential to be higher, and I think the sequel could like knock it out of the ballpark. Who knows? It could be like the best movie ever. The sequel of this movie. Ooh. Who knows? But we'll see. I feel like it has potential to really go far and wide. So I'm gonna give it 9.7.
Okay, respect.
Yeah, and that pretty much concludes
our
Batman movie review. We had a lot to say. We covered, I think, pretty much everything. So we're excited. Hopefully, in the future, I don't know when Penguin. I'm assuming the Penguin show will be next. I'm assuming that will probably be late 2023, if I could guess.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Probably.
But who knows? I'm excited for the future.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and if you enjoyed our other episodes, go to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Let us know you like us by giving us a download and then also a review. We'd really appreciate that. Stay tuned. There's apparently a lot of really dope trailers dropping soon for Marvel. So when they do, we'll break them out. So stay tuned, guys.
Yep. And we just want to thank y'all for listening, and we love you 3000.